Welcome back to another edition of Zero Blog 30. Today we have a story that's going to blow your absolute dick off. A lot of times on Reddit, social media, you see different types of propaganda. This is propaganda. This is propaganda. The United States this week admitted to doing some propaganda. And it's a pretty shocking story. And was it bigger? I think because I was off social media all weekend and off line all weekend. Were people talking about it a lot, or people just didn't give a shit?
Nope, barely been a blip. But basically, it feels like we've maybe been getting a taste of our own medicine. If this is what we're doing to other countries, then I feel like it's been happening to us too. So
yeah,
interesting story.
So we're going to get into this story about COVID vaccine and how our government has gone out of its way to make other people not take it. It's crazy. You're going to hear about that. We got a couple other news stories that we're going to tell you about too, and all that's going to be brought to you by our good friends at NASCAR. The entire racing community rallies around NASCAR salutes to show respect and gratitude to the brave men and women who fight to protect the country. You're going to want to tune in on Sunday, June 23rd at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on USA. The race is the only NASCAR Cup Series and NASCAR Xfinity Series held in the 6-state New England region. Have you guys ever gone to New Hampshire?
Yes, a handful of times actually.
Fucking lovely, right?
Oh, it's a gorgeous state.
Yes.
Yeah. The city of Portsmouth, I spent a lot of time in. Awesome.
I hiked the Appalachians up there.
Are you guys Appalachians or Appalachians?
The former.
Appalachian?
I think if you're from West Virginia, you're Appalachians.
Yeah.
But if you're Northeast like us, you're going to the Appalachians.
I think it has to do with sides of the mountains that you're on based on how you speak it.
Really?
I know, people from Kentucky, for example, will say they're from Appalachia instead of Appalachia.
All I know is the only place you're going to want to be near the Appalachians is at that racetrack, my friend.
You're exactly right, Kate. Yep. We don't have to get into the pronunciation of Appalachia, but we do have to get into a little bit of NASCAR on the 23rd at 2:30 again on USA to watch it. You're going to want to watch it. It's going to be a great race. Spider said he's pumped about this one. Very underrated race, he says, that people don't talk about it a lot, but they will be because it's going to be an exciting one that you're going to want to check out. All right, let's get going with some things to talk about. One, Catherine, I saw a tweet that you had this morning. I had no idea shrinkflation was hitting tampons.
Yeah, that's a theory. A tinfoil hat theory going around is that a lot of women think that there's something with the environment or the stuff in our foods now that's making our periods a lot heavier. But actually, it's the companies over at Big Tampax and tampons and pads making all our menstrual products smaller. So here we are thinking our bussies are getting bigger.
Their flow is way heavier.
We think our flows are bigger, but our pads are just smaller is the theory that I see going around. Because of inflation, the companies are skimping us on padding. I don't know how true that is, but yes, very interesting.
Does it send you for a loop whenever you feel like that's going on? When you're like, damn, I got a heavier flow than usual. What's going on here? Is it a medical concern?
So glad you asked that. Yes, it's really exciting when that happens. You don't know. Are you going to bleed out? I don't know. It's very exciting. Thank you.
Can I say something really quickly?
Sure.
I mean, based on this conversation and just even the way Chaps opened the show in the sentence he said.
Yeah.
I played golf this past weekend with some new people, and they ask, what do you do? And it usually comes out that I have a podcast, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna check it out. And then I always think about these people, and this is their introduction into the show.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess so. Jump in the deep end, see if you can swim.
This is the only period talk. If you're new, this is the only period talk of the show. Maybe.
Well, it is Period Tuesday, so
that's true. That's true.
We haven't had a good old-fashioned Period Tuesday in a long time.
Yeah.
Cons, also, first Father's Day weekend, pal. How was it?
I mean, it was excellent because it was more than just the day. I really got treated extremely well. I sat behind home plate at the Orioles-Phils game on Friday night. I played a Golf Digest Top 100 course on Saturday morning that I've been dying to play for many years now. That was an enjoyable, Caves Valley in Maryland. My brother-in-law is a member there. So it just worked out that I've played with him at his other two clubs and just didn't work out that we hadn't had a chance to play there yet. So it was really a long time coming and a nice treat. And then Sunday came home and got to relax and had a steak on the grill with my family and watched the U.S. Open. So it was all it's cracked up to be. I can't believe I waited this long to become a dad because it was awesome. How was yours?
Oh, yeah.
Father's Day was great. I had like a whole last weekend. I was telling Annalise last night. I came in. I was at the Barstool Classic yesterday, so I was outside from like 7 o'clock in the morning until I got home at like 6. I've been outside way more than in a long time. I did the bike ride. I went on Friday morning, so we loaded up. Tyler Childers. I had Tyler Childers on Thursday night, which was, top 5 concerts I've ever been to. Like the dude, he just sounds exactly like he does on the album. The piano player. Now I know it's going to sound crazy, but I've seen Billy Joel in concert. I have never been more impressed with a piano player than Tyler Childers' piano player. Like, you know how they'll do like a 10-minute guitar solo where you're like, holy shit, how does he keep going? This guy would do it and you're like, man, he is fast. And then he would get faster and faster and faster and more musically involved. It was amazing how good he was.
People tickling those ivories.
I'm actually seeing
ivory skate. You're absolutely right. And then I did the bike ride. We went to the Mascot Hall of Fame, and you're riding around on the lake the whole time. Like the first 40 miles or so, you're riding directly on the lake and looking out, and you're wrapping around like where the museums are in downtown Chicago. It was just so beautiful to be out there. The weather was amazing. It was like 65 degrees to start out the first few hours.
For anybody who doesn't know, Chaps did a big bike ride for charity, and it was 120 something miles.
Yeah, 112.
Yep. And he completed it, 112 miles, and super cool.
Yeah, it was a really good time. Like, saw stuff that I wouldn't have ever seen out there, dude. But they got to do something about these road bikes, man. Like that, I felt like you, Kate. Like Kate, you'd absolutely be in shambles. You're going on these trails and a root will grow underneath the bottom of it where you can't see it because of the shadow. And then it hits you and it sends like a stinger all the way up your spine.
It would kill me probably.
Old me would have looked at new me and been just tickled pink with the amount of struggle busing that I was doing at like mile 65 on the first day, going up and down these hills. And they were small hills, but I was still broke the fuck off at the end. But it was fun, man. Like I had a great time. Went into the lake afterwards, did a little soaking in Lake Michigan with a couple beers in my pocket. So it was great.
Yeah, and I mean, like, dude, coming from Texas, certainly you can get used to anything, but when it's just so brutally hot, unless you're maybe out on one of the lakes, like you just don't even want to be outside. So I get that and obviously Chicago, I think, is actually having a heat wave right now. I don't know if it was this weekend, but
yeah,
it's just so much easier.
Had a 2-day reprieve in that.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just so much easier.
Yeah. Then we came back awesome. After we were done with it. We came back. All the dudes around here, like we had like 4 or 5 families. We went and got a big ass plate of ribeyes. We had like 15 ribeyes that we cooked and pork chops and everything, and ate out with the families. It was great. And then I didn't move during the U.S. Open, which is ideal.
Classic Father's Day move for both.
I mean, whoever designed it where U.S. Open's always on Father's Day, absolute genius. It's
give them a raise.
Built-in Father's Day.
Yeah.
Caps, can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
You've been in Chicago. You moved there, what, in October?
July of last year.
All right, so almost a year.
Yep.
I am going to go out on a limb and say this last year, you've been happier than the last like 6 years combined that I've known you.
Oh,
yep.
It's not even a question. Like my personal life is so much better. Like there's certain times in your life where for me that my identity is wrapped up into one thing. And I would basically say always, like my pastor life, I was always wrapped up in that. Marine life, always wrapped up in that. I feel like this is the first time I've ever had like a real work-life balance where, for a while, because the only people I talked to were Barstool people a lot during the day because I didn't have a whole lot of friends in Texas that I wanted to hang out with. So I feel like I'm just at a better spot mentally because I have work is good. And then I have like friend life here. Family life is great. Going out and doing different things instead of sitting in a basement office all day every day.
Yeah, and this is not a knock on you at all. I think just by the sheer fact that you lived in a remote area, you just didn't have a lot of people to hang out with. There weren't many times where I'd hear like, oh, I had beers with my buddies. Now it's like you're doing something every weekend with people in your neighborhood and folks around. So it's very nice for you to see.
Yeah, it's great. Definitely beats the shit out of COVID for sure. Kate, let's go through. And
All right, let's jump into it.
That was a good transition, right?
Oh boy. All right, here we go. So the Pentagon on Friday stood by its decision to conduct a clandestine, pardon me, disinformation campaign in the Philippines. So 2020, say just like here, say you're in the Philippines, you're on Facebook or whatever they have there on social media, you're seeing all these posts and their COVID vaccine was coming from China. Like how here we had Pfizer or whatever, some big pharmaceutical company in China came up with their COVID vaccine and they're distributing it all over Asia and in the Philippines. People in the Philippines start seeing posts that are like, oh, and looks like it's coming from other Filipinos and stuff like that, saying like, I wouldn't take that vaccine if I was you. The vaccine turns you into a magnet. The vaccine turns you gay. Stuff like that, I'm assuming. Not verbatim. But
turns you into a magnet.
They're seeing all. Remember when people were like, look, I got the vaccine and now like metal things.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
That's a real thing people think. That's a real thing. But basically, they start seeing all this disinformation about China's vaccine. And this was especially bad because the Philippines was already struggling to vaccinate their population against COVID. And they had one of the worst death rates in the region, like horrible, horrible death rate there. And this social media campaign that was going on, telling people not to trust the vaccine, was making it worse. That's because, and who was making it worse? Who was doing these posts that looked like they were from other Filipinos? The U.S. military. That was us doing that. This disinformation campaign followed a decision by then Defense Secretary Mark Esper to loosen restrictions on such operations. The Philippines disinformation campaign marks an unusual use of military power in a country that has often been a U.S. ally. So we did this to kind of a buddy of ours in a strategically crucial region and at a time of great public health risks. Lisa Lawrence, a defense spokeswoman, did not deny the reporting on the operation, which was done under both Trump and Biden. Buddy, they're all the same in the end, aren't they? They're just... Anyway, the Pentagon conducts a wide range of operations, including operations in the information environment to counter adversary malign influence and blah, 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 blah. The DoD uses a variety of platforms, including social media, to counter those malign influence attacks. I don't fully understand this one. I guess we did it because China initiated a disinformation campaign blaming us about COVID. So China was like telling the whole world that was the USA that did that. And if you're in other countries, like we live in a bubble. So we think what we think. All these other countries in a bubble are hearing they're only getting this news from China and they think we did it, which makes us look bad. So in turn, we were like, oh, yeah, we're going to kill a bunch of people in the Philippines.
It's weird that as a global community, you can't even be honest with each other when it comes to like a global pandemic, where you can't be like, hey, let's stop the bullshit. This has nothing to do with taxes or anything like that. Let's just make sure millions of people don't die. Like that.
You're right.
Crazy.
But ultimately, it comes down to just maintaining power and trying to maintain, the so-called order in the world. So at the risk of all those people dying, it's more important, seemingly, that we maintain our upper hand against other nations, albeit allies in this case.
And this is dollars and cents stuff, right? Like I think it has more to do with profits, because if China, like they bring in all the money from all their vaccines all over the place, you don't want them to get, quote, rich off of it. You'd rather Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and whoever the fuck the other third one was. Maybe that's it? You think it's money?
I mean, there's probably millions of conspiracy theories on this, and I bet some of them are true, because at the end of the day, I'm sure greed somehow was involved in it.
I would have said this was 1,000% top to bottom a conspiracy theory. If the DoD, and this didn't come from Reuters, there would be like, nah, no way. Like there's absolutely no way. But the primary reporting originally was from Reuters. So it's like, they're not exactly partisan.
Yeah, they found at least 300 accounts on Twitter that matched descriptions shared by former U.S. military officials familiar with the Philippines operation. A lot of the posts from these accounts centered on the slogan #ChinaAngVirus, which in the Philippines in Tagalog means China is the virus. They often focused on giving credence to the false claim that Since the vaccines sometimes contain pork gelatin, the Chinese-made shots could be forbidden for Muslims under Islamic law. The social media activity began during Trump's administration when Esper signed a secret order that made it easier for commanders to compete with Russia and China by enabling them to bypass the State Department when conducting information warfare against
How
the
do
two
you do
countries.
that? How is that legal?
I don't think that's a good idea.
How is that legal?
You know what
to
that would
bypass
be
the
like?
State Department.
We all have every company in the summertime has interns, right? And say at Barstool, some of them are social media interns, right? But before we let them go posting willy-nilly, it goes through some checks, okay?
Yeah.
There's some oversight.
Yeah.
Because if there wasn't, we might be out of jobs, okay?
Right.
I feel like that's the case here. You can't just let these folks go rogue, okay? They need a little bit of oversight
But
here.
isn't that kind of the nature of having propaganda, is that you want them to go a touch rogue, right? Like you want them to get a little more extreme. So the messaging is the same, but the way that it's packaged and the level of crazy, because that's the way social media works. You know, like if it was just all like insanely crazy, nobody believes it. You have to have that tiny little kernel of truth to get the plant like kind of growing.
I feel like because eventually this was going on and like the Trump admin didn't really know about it. The Biden admin didn't really know about it. And then alarmed social media executives started warning Biden's administration, hey, the Pentagon's trafficking COVID misinformation. This could look really bad. And then they were all like, oh, shit. So I feel like if the PSYOPs people have been like, here's like the basis of here's the little snugget of our plan, higher ups would have been like, yeah, maybe not.
Well, that's exactly right, though. They might have shut it down, and then these folks didn't want that to happen. So they're acting under the ever-present principle that we've seen in the military. Sometimes better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. And that's how seemingly they were operating. And I kind of laughed when the line mentions the vaccines contain pork gelatin, because that's just like, you think, oh, that's crazy. But then you think about some of the stuff that floated around Facebook, and your crazy aunt was talking about during COVID and
but they still are. They still are. Also, too, remember there was the rumor that there was like horse jelly and s'mores Pop-Tarts. That stopped me eating s'mores Pop-Tarts for a whole week.
Oh yeah, remember that horse and mane, tail and mane shampoo? Horse cum in there.
Horse cum, that's right, horse cum.
Horse cum will make your hair soft.
The reason why I feel like oversight's important, because this is a really, really bad thing to do. Experts have long objected to the use of vaccines and vaccination campaigns as part of military operations. They lead to loss of trust and confidence in vaccines as a whole, and they also endanger medical workers.
It seems like a bad idea. Like that seems foolish.
Basically, the people who suffer the most are at the bottom of the totem pole, don't have anything to do with what's going on, and they're the ones dying. Poor people are the ones who suffer from this. The biggest outrage when we fucked around with vaccines came after it was revealed in 2011 that the CIA used a fake hepatitis vaccine program as part of its effort to track down and kill Osama bin Laden, who was hiding in Pakistan. Basically, they were sending teams that looked like they were from like medical outreach organizations all around Pakistan, and people were lining up. They're like, oh, thank God we get these vaccines, because disease is like a huge problem over there. And all these people found out that it was just a setup, that it was fake. Real health organizations come in there in the future. One, they might be in danger in general from angry, pissed off people who don't believe they're real. And two, these people are never going to get vaccines, and they're never going to trust that again.
How have I never heard of that story either?
That was a huge part of it.
And if I know you've seen Zero Dark 30, they kind of touch on it. They don't say specifically it was a hepatitis vaccination program, but they touched on it in that movie a little bit.
Yeah.
But to your point, Chaps,
so wrong.
It is. Yeah. Well, exactly. You would think,
but also a good idea.
Exactly, because you're playing with people's trust. Because what is probably one of the last things people across the world in any country would think you would lie about? Health. When it comes to the health of a population,
not
good. About anything if they feel like their end game, if the end justifies the means, people don't have a problem with lying.
But then you make people hate us even more, and we look even worse on the global stage. So, like, really, it's just bad for us.
See, this is why I think that you have so many the DOD has to have like just a closet full of sociopaths. Like that, that they have no morals whatsoever, and being like, how can we do
You know
this?
who's the head of the CIA? Like those ideas is probably Dennis Reynolds from Always Sunny. He's probably, I can picture his brain being perfect in the CIA.
I mean, they probably just find people on Reddit too.
Oh yeah, big time. Well, that ruse led to outrage from doctors worldwide and a promise in 2014 from the CIA to not use immunization programs to cover for its operations in the future.
If you can trust anybody's promise, it's the CIA.
Yeah, it's definitely the CIA. They're always so honest.
Well, thanks to them, attacks against vaccination workers continue to this day across the Middle East. Pakistan and Afghanistan are now the only two countries that still have polio. And people blame, in large part, it like shattered the trust in vaccines in a region that really needs it the most. So tough look. That's tough.
That's tough, man.
Yeah.
But I think if you ask the average person, like, hey, we were doing this, to use this example, to catch Osama bin Laden. Are you okay with that? I think a lot of people would have said, yeah, I guess so, because that guy's really bad.
I would have
but on the other side, you're hurting all these other people.
Given them real vaccines at least? Couldn't we have put some real hepatitis shit in those needles?
I'm going to be honest with you. That probably cost too much money.
Or rabies. Something. Yeah. Just anything that would have been good.
Right.
Looking long term, though, you have to know that stuff's going to come back to bite us, and they're going to use it against us to rally more hate again. I don't know.
But at that time, Cons, like with Osama bin Laden, like if you're asking, I'm not sure people would, because it was 10 years after.
If
now,
you were like
you line that same group up and you're like, hey, we're going to do this in 2004, 2003.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think people are lining up around the block to do it. I'm not
in
sure.
In 2002, if you were like, Kate, we're going to put your butthole up in Times Square, close up for the entire year, but it means we'll be able to kill Osama bin Laden, I would have spread my cheeks.
Well, that's because you're a good American.
Thank you.
Patriot.
Thanks.
Indeed. All right. Well, if you have things to work through like Kate does, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. When life goes fast, it's important to take a moment to celebrate your wins and make adjustments for the rest of the year. Therapy can help you take stock of the progress and set achievable goals for the next 6 months. I mean, it's important, man. Like the mental health aspect of just being a human being. I was talking to Frankie yesterday. We were playing golf, and I said, "What do you think the biggest difference of your golf game is?" And he was like, "Honestly, doing therapy. Like I've been going to therapy, and it's helped me. Like not necessarily on the golf course, but just being able to control my emotions, control anger, control my anxiety a little bit more. It's helped out in every phase of my life, to include golf." So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Take a moment. Visit betterhelp.com/0 today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/0. All right, Katie, let's do some news roundup. You want to start off in Germany?
Well, so I'm going to do a story. This is Pride Month after all, and I was really touched by this story. You're crazy if you don't think there's a lot of gay people serving in the military. Always has been, always will be. There's gay people serving your country. I don't know why you would be upset about that, but there are. But unfortunately, it's still a difficult thing for many people to come out. And so I thought that this story was, I don't know, it just really touched me. A U.S. military veteran who died earlier this month came out as gay in an obituary published after his death. The obituary in the Albany Times-Union tells the story of Colonel Edward Thomas Ryan, a decorated Army officer who served in Vietnam and was a fireman in his hometown, upstate New York. He died on the 1st of June at age 85. In the obituary, Ryan added a note written in the first person just before his death. "I must tell you one more thing. I was gay all my life, through grade school, through high school, through college, through life." Ryan, or Uncle Ed as he was known to some, admitted to being in a loving and caring relationship with Paul Cavarno of North Greenbush. "He was the love of my life. We had 25 great years together. Paul died in 1994 from a medical procedure gone wrong. I'm sorry for not having the courage to come out as gay." Ryan said he did not come out sooner because he was afraid of being ostracized by family, friends, and coworkers. especially I imagine as a firefighter in a small town and as a military veteran, seeing how people like me were treated, I just could not do it, he said. So here's a person who served his country, served his town, and still didn't feel like he had the freedom to be himself, which is crushing. The New York Times reported that Ryan showed the obituary to his niece Linda and her husband Edward a month before he died. That gives me some comfort that he was able to tell people who he really was before he died. Linda and I knew, you know what I mean? We never sat down and talked about it prior because my uncle was a private person, so we never broke that boundary. We knew, but we didn't say anything, said Edward. The revelation was met with a wave of support, with people all over the world commenting on Ryan's obituary. Rest in pride and power, Colonel Ryan, one person wrote. Ryan is survived by many nieces and nephews and will be buried in upstate New York next to his partner. Now that my secret is known, I'll forever rest in peace, Ryan said. And it's worth noting there's probably thousands and thousands more who have passed away without ever getting that off their chest or ever fully being able to be themselves their entire lives. An estimated 100,000 service members since World War II were kicked out of the military because of their sexual orientation. More than 13,000 under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which ended while we were in. And I know we talk about this every year, but I think it's worth repeating. And several times since like the 50s, there were studies that the government was commissioning that every single time, even against the grain of what the popular opinion was at the time, that showed LGBTQ troops really didn't affect anything, like didn't cause any problems, didn't affect anything. And it was actually super costly to kick them out because you're paying to train them to do all this stuff. And it costs money to kick them out too, like to send them on their way. And then public opinion too was also overwhelmingly, especially as time went on, even during the era of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the majority of public opinion was like, we don't really care if they serve or not. And yet politicians, time and time again, many who never served a day in their life, used these service members to flame people up and make it a news point. And like, we see it all the time with troops, little things about troops, the troops this, the troops that, when really, if you're serving, you're like, actually, this doesn't affect us at all. And you're just using us as pawns. Anyway.
And also, you can't be offended by that if you're a Marine. No one's gayer than the U.S. Marine.
No, we're out. Oil check. Doink, doink. A lot of butt checking. A lot of credit card swipe. All told,
we frown on that now, Kate.
Huh?
No more credit card swiping. Can't do that now.
No, unless you ask first.
Yeah, you can ask permission. Yeah.
I say debit or credit.
ATM open.
Debit
or credit.
Or a little pat for a little. Just press your card.
Yeah, just do a touch payment.
Yeah. Or I just use my
little Apple Pay.
Butt. But again, that's over 100,000 troops denied benefits, home loans, healthcare, tuition assistance, government jobs, dishonorable discharges.
Yeah, there's still people that you still have folks that are having to go through their old discharge paperwork and get it a lot of times upgraded from even bad conduct discharges, where that kind of stuff affects the type of benefits, the type of loans, all kind of job prospects. Like it's a rough thing to go through just for being who you are.
Well, finally, last year, for the first time, the DOD began, because it used to be on the veteran to come forward, which as a gay veteran is tough you don't want to go to the VA and be like, hey, like maybe, you know what I mean? Last year, for the very first time, the DOD proactively began reviewing military records of veterans discharged because of their sexual orientation to identify those who may be eligible for discharge upgrades but haven't yet applied. I was at Fordham University with a guy from the Navy who had been kicked out under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And it was something that psychologically fucked him up bad.
Oh, yeah.
Took a long time for him to get over it. Like, how do you get over that? I don't know. But anyway, I just thought that Colonel Edward Thomas Ryan deserved his story to be told. And I'm glad that he got to come out before he passed. So got to say who he really was. Yeah. So anyway.
Can I also say, regardless of sexual orientation too, I just think back when I was a platoon leader, there were a lot of things I didn't want to know about when you weren't at work. Whatever you did in your private time, have at it. Have fun, do whatever you want, as long as you're not breaking the law and getting me in trouble and causing me a heartache. I don't care your sexual orientation, what you like to do for hobbies, any of that. As long as you can do your job.
And if you're gay, you can be able to talk about your family at work like everybody else.
Yes,
and you know what I mean?
That too.
if,
You
if
shouldn't,
we get a supercut of how many times I've said my wife on this show, it would be hours and hours long. I can't imagine having to be like, my friend.
You're right. Yeah.
You know, like I was hanging out with a buddy. Like, it's not your buddy, dude. It's your partner.
Right.
Like, you should be able to say that. Or like go to the ball. Like imagine not being able to go. Like I think that of my 10 years in, 9 of my favorite days are going to Marine Corps ball and like being with a date and going out and dancing and feeling like that you couldn't do that for a whole career. Like just something that is so quote seemingly small about that. And it's just not like that's a huge part of love is a huge part of the human condition. And if you have to hide that under a bushel, no, you gotta let your love shine.
Gotta let it shine. Up next, super quick story. Pretty much countries all over the world are struggling with recruiting right now. It's not just us. And Germany is having like a major problem as well. So their defense minister is
want to know why?
Why?
I was reading an article this morning. This is the highest level of global conflict since World War II currently.
So we're just in shambles everywhere.
Across the globe, there's more war going on now than any time since World War II.
Yeah. So
that's crazy, right?
It is. I would have thought it would have been
like a relative peacetime for us.
Yeah, I would have said it was during Iraq and Afghanistan. I wouldn't have said it is now. Interesting.
Well, Germany is very close to Russia and Ukraine, so they want to be beef-caked up on a Tuesday, double-cheeked up on a Tuesday. They want to have their troops ready, and they don't got them. They don't have enough, like, by any means. So Germany's defense minister is like, I have this awesome plan. I know what young people love more than anything, and what's going to reel them in. It's not video games. It's not hot girls on TikTok. It's not whatever. It's snail mail. They're going to be sending out, as soon as you turn 18 in Germany, you're going to get a letter in the mail. That's about 400,000 fellas every year. And it's going to be a letter from the government saying, hey, are you interested in serving in the military? And if you say yes, you're stuck in a contract for about 6 months to 26 years or to 26 months. Basically, if you say yes to that survey and you mail it back to them, they call you in for a medical appointment. Contract? And then basically you're sucked in for
what?
So who the fuck is going to get that letter in the mail? And there's an option to be like, no, I'm not interested. Who the fuck is going to be like, yeah, I'll dip my toe in this. What's this all about? I'm going to answer yes. I just thought that was crazy. I thought
that is no crazy.
Way. He's expecting that they'll get about 5,000 qualified folks each year from this snail mail campaign. And I don't think so. I don't think.
Maybe not, but at least they're trying something different. A little outside the box.
You know who would end up in the German military? White Sox Dave.
Oh, for sure. By accident, though. He would. He would like smash a bug on the yes column by accident, and he would wind up in the military for the next.
Fall forward, and it happens to go into the mailbox.
By the way, I did the math: 400,000 letters a year. I looked up the price of a German stamp. So the stamp to the home, and then the return stamp, because you got to put. That's almost $1 million a year in stamps alone, not including the mailing.
Oh, we'll spend $1 million in a recruiting thing just to be the presenting partner of like UFC for a couple fights.
Right, get a lady with big bazungas to say, "Oh, it's the German military." Oh, yes. So anyway, I just thought that was silly.
That is silly.
It is.
One other thing, speaking of war stuff, did you guys know that our U.S. Navy is involved with more combat operations than they have been since World War II? That they've been more direct.
I didn't know it was the most since World War II, but it's not surprising to hear just because I've seen how busy they've been the last year or so and what they've been doing.
And I was reading an article about it that have like the Houthis that are sending all kinds of drones their way, and they're like, it's a really difficult mission to be a part of, like to have. And the commander was explaining, he was like, look, they're getting these drones basically off of Amazon type places for $200, $100 a pop. They're super cheap, and they can send them over hundreds at a time with like little grenades on them, little different type of weapon systems. And he was like, you go in and you can shoot down 5,000, but one of those 5,000 gets through and you could have casualties happen from that. And you're like, oh, little drones from this. And next thing you know, they're in daily battles with these things, and troops are in like legit danger. And I don't know how you stop it like that.
I do.
It's like a Minutemen type of situation. You can have the most powerful army in the world, but it doesn't really make a difference if you can't stop the 1 and 2 pop shots.
Ever heard of chicken wire?
I have.
Cover the boat in it.
Just have a whole sea of chicken wire going around.
Just like they used to keep seagulls off your French fries at Jersey Shore restaurants. Little chicken wire rooftop.
Well,
Hello? Honest
I'll
to
cut
God,
this-
would that not fucking work?
I'll cut this as a clip and tag the Navy in it. See what they think about chicken wire.
Navy, chicken wire over the boats.
Chicken wire. Your thoughts?
Would that not fucking work?
Yeah,
I
but
think
what
it
about
would.
these boats? What about these boats that have like choppers that come and land on them? So is there like a
okay,
hatch?
John, it's okay. We have to get into details.
Oh, what about if you do a 2-for-1 because recruiting is such an issue? Instead of having like chicken wire, if you put one of those huge fair swing sets that swings you around like the swings at the fair,
Yes.
and so then you have like service members' legs become like the chicken wire.
No,
and
they
you
each get a
knock those
tennis
bad boys
racket.
out of the air.
Which is also a small form of chicken wire, is it not?
You're pretty hung up
Yeah.
on this chicken wire.
Makes
Yeah.
you think.
Maybe you got something here.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Kate?
Also, I have an answer to your helicopter. The chicken wire can open and shut like a drawbridge.
Okay, great.
Oh,
Perfect.
chicken wire.
Problem
Yeah.
solved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
All right. Let's move on to some save rounds and alibis. Cons. We'll start with you.
Yeah. So I love doing my lawn. Okay.
Mm.
As a homeowner, I take a great pride in how my lawn looks. I look around the neighborhood, and growing up, like we weren't allowed to walk on the front lawn, but it always looked pristine. My dad took a lot of time and effort, and I would help with doing the lawn too. And I tweeted that, like, was that crazy that my dad didn't want people walking on the front lawn? And some
You were
people were
destined
like,
for the military, buddy.
yeah.
Mhm.
No walking on the grass.
Some people
Mhm.
were like, dude, it's a lawn, get over it. But now I look around my neighborhood, and the people who have crappy lawns are the ones who allow people to walk all over them. And I don't care. Because then our colleague Jersey Jerry was talking about, he's distraught right now. He's tried to put sod down 3 different times in his front lawn, and it hasn't taken.
There's a house down the street here that they did over the last year, like a total gut reno. And then this last month, the last part was they put all this beautiful sod down. And I'm out walking every single morning with the kids. And every morning that it just turned brown this week, the entire thing. And
That's
the
tough.
dad's just out there in his pajama pants with the limp hose. And he just looks so fucking depressed.
Yeah,
That's real. Whatever you guys feel about lawns is like a thing. Like,
it is a real
bless
thing.
your little hearts. I don't.
And people,
Bless
just
your
want to have people who pay to have their lawn done. That's fine. Whatever. That'll never be me. I appreciate doing it myself. Because I also think you get a more attention to detail as opposed to the guy who's coming and has 10 lawns to do that day. So he's trying to just get through it as fast as he can. But my heart goes out to Jersey Jerry right now, dealing with
It's tough.
his sod issues. So
Yeah,
hopefully
when
he
you
gets
want to
involved.
have it look good, it's sad when it doesn't.
Yeah.
Ours is
Yeah.
looking great, and then Gus's piss is like battery acid. Like he's on one spot one time, next thing you know, it's yellow. Like he's a real piece of shit. He's a piece of work with his piss.
Dude,
Mm.
I'm trying to come to terms. There's so many dogs here in Chicago, and our neighborhood is just dog city. And dogs are always shitting in the little grass median strips, and pissing on the trees. And every morning on the walk to school, my son will have like a little like toy that he's like rolling through the dirt next to the tree or what. And I'm always like, oh my God, I bet that's all dog piss dust. I bet that's all dog. Like, he'll be fine, right? But
Yeah, but who cares? It's just a little dog piss. I never hurt anybody.
we like
It's
set up the
fine.
baby pool on the median grass, and I'm like, I know that I bet the neighbors are looking at us like they're just rolling around in dog piss out there.
No, that's just little kids being little. You're supposed to be in
Yeah.
piss grass. You're supposed
Okay.
to like that's.
Okay.
I mean, that's part of life. If you don't have a childhood where you roll around in grass and you get dirty and you play outside, I feel sorry for you because
Yeah,
you're not
definitely.
doing that as an adult. I'm not doing that now.
I don't have scrapes on my knees as an adult.
Right.
I don't
There's
have scabs to
strawberries.
pick
Yeah,
as an adult.
yeah.
So I agree with you.
Got to get out there and get dirty. All right.
Get
I'll
dirty.
let him do it.
That's all I have. I care about my lawn, and I think it's a nice thing to care about your lawn.
Yes.
Katie.
Heading down the Jersey Shore this week.
Oh yeah.
Woo, woo. So excited. Heading back to Philly with just me and the kids on Friday. Spending a night at the 55 and up retirement community. It'll be baby Buckshot's big debut there. So I'm
Oh,
very
that'd be
excited.
big. Yeah.
When you bring a new baby into the 55 and up, it's like a Hollywood red carpet. People are going crazy.
Oh
So
yeah.
very excited for that attention. And then we're heading down the Jersey Shore for a whole week. Same sea shanty on stilts. It's the size of a trailer. Me and my parents are all disabled. So 2 kids on a sea
But when the
shanty
whole
over the
squad has
ocean.
osteoporosis.
Me and my mom both do. And we're both shattered. So I'm excited about that. We're going to have a good time.
I'll actually be down the shore all next week as well. Different shore though, as we know.
Oh, well, come on down if you're around. It's also, I'm going to the beach where if you were following the beer Olympics with Bussin' with the Boys, I'm going to be on the beach where the Kelseys are having their beer Olympics at the same time. So I might swing by and say hello to the Kelsey brothers. And, but anyway, I'm trying to think what other scoops I have. Got my hair cut. I think we talked about that. It's a barracks cut. And, I'm trying to think what else. Do I have anything good? Anything fun? I rented a golf cart this year. I'm very excited.
Oh.
It's expensive as fuck. It was my Father's Day gift to my dad.
What do they hit you for a week renting a golf cart?
Guess. I'll give you a clue. The golf carts, I have to drive it over from Avalon, which is hoity-toity town.
Oh, that helps with pricing it out. No, more than
way
that.
higher.
No, I'm saying it's around $1,000 for the week.
Yep.
That's
crazy. I know.
You're buying you're essentially buying 1/6 of a golf cart for them.
I know, but me and my parents are disabled and all the other families over by the Acme. So we got to be able to get over to them with the kids and, so cool stories by me. Chaps?
Yeah, good job, Kate.
Thank you. Nailed it again.
My last Father's Day note. When you are the dad that's on, so I got put on grill duty after the first day of the bike ride where we're all sitting around. Awesome. So we're doing this bike ride, right? Like all the guys are having a good time. We get there and we stayed at one of my neighbor's mom's house, has a big lake house, and we stayed down there. And she had brought like stuff for us to make burgers and grill out whenever we got there. So I got put on grill duty. When people are like, I want medium rare, I want medium, I'd like a medium well plus, and you can do that exactly the right way, it is one of the greatest dad power moves that there is. When you're like, yeah, dude, what do you want? This way? Oh, you want a steak? How do you want it? What internal temperature you want? I'll pull it off this way. When you have it done and it's done correctly, the instant dad clout that you get from being a good griller is off the charts. It's a top-notch feeling.
If I was given this wouldn't be my number one thing, but I would like to, if I had the opportunity to go back in time. It's like, if you could go back in time and see one thing, I would love to go back in time to like a cave. And that caveman is grilling for a bunch of people over a fire and he nails it. And everyone's like, oh, you know what I mean? And I bet he's like, I bet he's so proud. I bet that's one of the oldest feelings of pride is like grilling something well.
Yeah. Well, and the other challenging part about that too, when you're doing it for a lot of people, is it's just so much easier when you're cooking in bulk like that to just do it all the same way and keep them on all the same time. So taking the time and effort to cook them slightly different, that's a nice touch.
It was a good time. So we had that delicious dinner, and then Cons, this is for you. Maybe an idea that I think we should get started. Have you ever watched the movie The Equalizer with Denzel Washington?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Like, it's like it's like this assassin type movie where he used to be a hitman, work like for like the alphabet agencies, and would go around and kill people that needed it and do it in a quick and efficient way. Well, there's like 4 or 5 of them now. So when we stopped for the night and we ate, everybody was exhausted. Typically, we like drink bourbon and stuff together. We all had exactly 1 glass of bourbon after the ride, and we threw on Equalizer. And it was the perfect end of a bike ride weekend. And we all made the agreement, because I was the only one in the group of like 4 or 5 that had seen it. We all made an agreement that nobody will watch Equalizer 2 until next year. So
that's a good tradition. I like that.
And then we're going to do Equalizer 3 and 4 and then find a new series, but you can't watch it throughout the year. I think that's going to be a great thing.
That's very
fantastic.
Love it.
Because there's so many movies out there like that they're not bad movies. They're just not, you know, going to win Oscars, but they're great and fun and enjoyable movies.
That's exactly what Equalizer is.
But it's even more enjoyable when you watch it with a bunch of other dudes. It takes it up a notch.
Yeah,
it's the
like,
reason.
Oh, it's the reason that quirk.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason I go to see the Fast and Furious movies with Feidelberg and not by myself or wait for them to come out on video, because it's more enjoyable that way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking by today. We will see you next week. Sound the Retreat.